Another installment of the Convention Junkies.
Welcome to another harrowing adventure by the Convention Foursome, traveling from convention to convention, purging all evil, until no one wants to ever speak to them again.
So I thought that I would just start a little brain dump. That person seems to have been in my way, they're French fries. Sometimes they're French fries anyways. And the French fries are really good. And I like French fries.
You need to keep, talking to your phone while you're driving.
Well, I like my phone. My phone, is a statement. It is a statement fact. A fact that does not need to be proven, and you need to prove that it is a phone that I am talking to.
You're kind of an asshole. A stupid shithead.
From you, I will take that as a normal statement that I will not require justification for, because you are a good guy and my friend. But if you were a Christian, I would have to punch you in the face.
Hey guys, could we, could we stop in somewhere for something to drink?
I think that we could do that.
Oh my god.
You're kind of an asshole. You're kind of shit.
You order me a coffee?
Phone, I'm getting asked. Finish them off. Hey, Richard, would you mind? I don't have any evidence to back this up, but I think we'll get away easier if you beat that guy with the tire iron from the trunk. I'll pop it for you. There you go.
Cool, people. That's cool, and other things are.
Can I help you, sir? Is there something you need?
Yes, we're documenting ourselves on my phone on the way to a convention. It's what we do for a living. We don't really do much else.
I don't really care. Can I order you something?
Yeah, can you, please give us each a coffee?
A coffee? You'd like a coffee?
Rapist! The rapist, he wants a coffee. He's a rapist.
Oh, did you hear that, YouTube?
You're kind of an asshole. But I will say that the person is probably a great apologist, simply because they are not on board with what I think.
Well, I think that we better get out of here, kind of quick, guys, because there's a rapist everywhere, and I just ran over a few more people on the way here.
Because I'm very much a skeptic. I'm more of a skeptic than I am an atheist. I mean, atheist is a conclusion based on my skepticism.
You'll have to come like a little child to the foot of the cross.
That attitude is what is responsible for the rise of atheism.
That's not what Islam is all about. Islam is peace.
What is the penalty for leaving the Muslim faith? With the death penalty. Thank you.
This is Apostasy Now.
For people to get the information correct before they start yapping.
Get ready to root for the bad guys.
Begins with E, evidence. All the evidence.
So, hello, Mr. Dragonbeard.
How you doing, Smashlot?
I'm doing great. So, today's show, we're going to try and make a little bit more structured than last time. The introductory episode was a little bit longer than expected, I think, but
it was good, but a little bit insane.
A little bit, but I'm kind of used to insanity in my life. A couple of things here. One is the Human Rights Tribunal making a ruling on specifically, atheism as a creed that requires protection as much as Christianity or Islam?
Yeah, this one's out of Canada, right?
It is. Here, I'll just read it right from the webpage.
Sure.
Atheism is a creed deserving of the same religious protections as Christianity and Islam and other faiths. The Ontario Human Rights Tribunal has ruled in a new decision. Protection against discrimination because of religion, in my view, must include protection of applicants' belief that there is no deity, wrote David A. Wright, Associate Chair of the Commission on the August 13th decision. The ruling was spurred by a complaint from a self-described secular humanist who was opposed to the District School Board of Niagara's policy regarding the distribution of Gideon Bibles. Since 1964, as in the rest of Canada, Gideons had offered free read Bibles to grade 5 students in the district, providing the students had first obtained parental consent. So that's the basic overview of it.
So as long as parents give consent, one religion will get
preferential treatment.
Will get allowed into the school, but if anyone else tries it, then that's not okay.
No, it's not. Well, actually, what brought this on is that this particular father tried to go to the school board and ask them for permission to hand out Just Pretend, a free thought book for children.
Yeah.
And he was denied.
Yeah, I know that book. Isn't that the one by Dan Barker?
I think it might be.
It's a good book, and I think what we were talking about earlier, I think the reason that he was doing that wasn't actually because he wanted to put the book in the school, but because he felt both Christian, atheist, and any other religious discussion or debate issue
shouldn't take place in the school.
Exactly. This is a place for learning, not a place for tearing people apart based on religious philosophy or however you want to put it.
Yeah, which is kind of similar to our first discussion when I was talking about that church group that rents space out in my kid's school, and I have a real serious problem with that. I applaud the efforts of the Human Rights Tribunal to try and make a fair ruling that would allow atheist material and other religious material to be included, but I think they missed the point.
Yeah.
I think the point was that they should have just taken out all provisions that allowed for the distribution of religious or non-religious material.
Yeah.
If it's not educational material, it really doesn't have any place in the school.
Right. Like I say, even when I was a Christian, I remember when I was younger, evangelical, I was completely 100% Christian.
Mm.
And when they took prayers out of school, remember every morning we'd say the Lord's Prayer.
I remember that.
We had some parents in our church that were upset, and even then I couldn't understand it. I was like, what does it make any difference? People are just repeating something that they've been told to say. If you don't believe it, then it doesn't make any difference anyway.
Yeah. I honestly, to this day, still remember the Lord's Prayer, like, verbatim.
Yes.
It's crazy how much that mantra just gets into your head and stays there. It sticks.
Yeah. Repeat it
every day from, like, grade 1 to, like, grade 7.
Yeah.
So it's in there. I'll never forget that.
I'm not an expert with Islam, but I think that they tend to do that a lot with their Quran verses.
Mm-hmm.
They make you memorize them, or maybe there's certain groups of them anyways punish you if you don't learn certain texts by a certain age.
Yeah, not to mention, like, as far as this ruling is concerned, maybe you'll disagree with me and maybe other atheists would disagree with me, but I have a real knee-jerk reaction to atheism as a movement being considered a creed.
Yeah.
It's not a creed, and if
I think they're struggling to find a word for us, though.
They are, but I mean, I don't want atheism, simply the lack of being or identifying as some religious body, to be defined by another organization for us.
Yeah.
They're not going to make a ruling that defines what a Muslim is or what a Christian is. They're clearly defined by their religious indoctrination and their religious texts. But because we aren't clearly defined in a lot of people's minds, they feel they can define us for us.
But I think this creed term probably comes from the Human Rights Tribunal in lieu of the fact that they don't have a clear term. But if they don't have any clear term, it's harder for them, I think, to acknowledge us in the system. So I don't agree with it either. But I think I understand why, they're kind of dumbfounded as to what proper term to use for us.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. Like it almost seems like this man, I'm sorry, I'm going to totally butcher his name, Mr. Cotenard, Rene Cotenard, who did this. It was a very, 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 very smart move. It's like right up there with the whole Pastafarian bit that happened down in the States there that started the flying spaghetti monster, where he was just trying to get his text into the circulation of the school, not because he actually wanted to succeed, because he wanted to point out how wrong it was that any religious text was getting into circulation in schools.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to be clever in order to get your foot in the door for the system to be able to exercise its better reason.
True, but in this case, I wouldn't say that he worked against himself, but it's almost like the tribunal kind of went the wrong direction with it.
Yeah.
I think that just saying, all right, religious texts should be distributed in religious circles, churches and private homes, not in public schools. It's a public school.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It was an interesting story nonetheless, and like I said, I applaud the Human Rights Tribunal for trying to be fair and remove discrimination, but the easiest way to remove discrimination is to just, I don't know, make sure that they can't distribute that stuff. That's it. Nobody can distribute that stuff.
I've even had this disagreement, in exactly what you just said. I've had this disagreement even with skeptics and atheists, where they say they're okay with having Christmas things up. They have nativity, a Jewish one, different Christian groups, a Muslim one, an atheist one, all putting them next to each other on government property, just so people don't fight. But the problem is, you'll never be able to stretch far enough. Too much division in what people want. And why would you want to have 5, 10, 100 displays on your court lawn for Christmas instead of just saying, this is a court, everyone grow up, put up your displays on your church property or your home?
Yeah. I mean, it's a little bit different, like on a court building or a city hall building, probably just leave it off that. But I mean, if it's like a public park, that is something that all public has the access to.
Yeah. And there's also, but parks also tend to have more room.
Well, yeah, they definitely have more room, but what I mean is like a city hall building or a court building, they are an institution of the government meant to make laws, enforce laws, so on and so forth. They really shouldn't have any part in any religious or non-religious display, but public parks, even though they're kind of created by the government of your town or municipality or your province or country, they have a lot more room, and they are meant to be a place where all public has access to. Right. So that makes more sense for like displays to be put up there. And I don't care. I've driven through the park here in town when they have their Christmas displays on, and all the different businesses have their light displays up and whatnot. And if I drive past a nativity scene, it doesn't offend me.
Even though we all tiptoe around this issue, I've been in churches, many churches in my life, and the attitude spoken within the church is always very clear and unashamed. Get them when they're young, right? Teach them when they're young. That's the goal, because though in their mind they're thinking they're saving souls, on some level they know children are more easily manipulated, they're more trusting, and that is really why they're trying to get into the schools.
Well, not to mention that as just a matter of, and pardon me if anyone listens and realizes that I'm utterly butchering this, I'm not a biology student, although I do have a great degree of love for the subject. It almost seems like we are biologically hardwired in our youth to accept authority.
Yeah, well, I think it makes sense for survival.
Well, yeah. Well, because we don't grow up fully, we are not born developed enough to just get up and walk around and fend for ourselves.
Right.
Some animals are born and they're up and walking in 4 hours.
Yeah.
But we must cling to our parents for a determinate amount of time, like a decade or decade and a half, before we're self-sustaining. And as such, we kind of gravitate towards listening to our protectors, those that have kind of shielded us. So if they tell us, believe this, this is a poisonous plant, don't eat. This is, a sharp stone, don't touch. This is a hot fire, don't put your hand in it. We tend to just agree with them. But that natural biological urge to listen to authority figures has been twisted so that now we can believe fantastical things as well.
Absolutely. Now that takes a little time again to understand kind of about our nature and how we're different from a lot of animals. When we're born, because of this massive neural net we have in our head, we cannot be born with all the knowledge, like a baby fish. They're eggs. This is why I am not a biology student.
Yeah, well, I'm back in school now, but none of my stuff takes any. Well, I mean, I guess there's evolutionary psychology is one of the things that I'm kind of touching on in this introductory course, but it by no means makes me an expert in the field, although it's very enlightening. It's good stuff. It's funny, almost every course I'm taking, though, talks about research methods and critical thinking.
Yeah.
And yet there are still people in my class who... There's literally one guy, nicest guy you'll ever talk to, believes he talks to ghosts.
Well, everyone has their friends.
Yeah.
Listen, I want to help advise you on your emotional problems you're going through right now. But first I need to consult with my invisible friend here. Excuse me. What's that? Okay, yeah. All right, so let's begin.
Yeah. And he won't be dissuaded from it. And I mean, it's a school environment, so I'm not going to stir the pot or anything. Nice guy, though. But believes he talks to ghosts. But kind of a little off topic there, sorry. And kind of like this, there seems to be a great deal of news in the last couple of weeks, or at least the last month in Canada. The other one that I wanted to touch on a little bit was this proposed Quebec ban on religious garb in certain public spaces. Wow, has that one ever caused a firestorm, eh? Wow.
Certainly has.
Kind of taken right out of the page of what they were doing in Europe when they were trying to ban the hijab.
Yeah. Well, that's what it's being compared to. Quebec and France are doing it a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I will acknowledge right up front for people who are opposed to it, and I'll agree with them wholeheartedly, is that they're making exceptions for small crosses and small rings and necklaces.
Mm-hmm.
With the understanding, I think, that most people realize that this is placating the Christians. Because Christians generally these days, at least in Canada, don't go around with headscarves on. They don't go around with...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'll agree with them there. Where the controversy begins is when we have these discussions about the fact that the hijab, a lot of even feminists will say the hijab, let's celebrate it because we don't want to judge these people for their culture. Rah, rah, rah. But these women, we're just talking about indoctrination. They're indoctrinated that they have to wear this. Even in Canada, if they don't wear it while they're going around their business, they don't wear that hijab, there are consequences in their home life, in their community, and the way they feel like God, this invisible being they've been taught since they were born, is going to judge them. It's condemnation. To me, it's a symbol of slavery. So even though I disagree with the specific approach this group is taking, I think it's important that we start having these discussions.
I agree. So just to clarify, you are not a fan of this provision here. You don't think they should ban this stuff.
I'm not a fan. Not a fan because it's biased in how they're bringing it about, and perhaps I don't know how far-reaching it is.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's perhaps overreaching its ability to enforce it.
Yeah, I agree. Honestly, it's a part of their culture. It's a part of their tradition. Whether or not I agree with it, as long as they're not hurting anybody, and as long as they're not, doing anything to try and subject non-religious individuals to this particular garb, like they're not trying to make every woman in Quebec wear the hijab or whatnot.
Right.
But I mean, I think this kind of ban opens up a really dangerous door. Like, it's a slippery slope, and I understand that this may not happen, but it's kind of like the previous story, talking about how this guy went to the school board and then the Human Rights Tribunal to try and get all of this stuff removed by having this kind of witty plot.
Yeah.
And then instead of having it all removed, he's got his text partly included, and now they're broadening the scope at which more stuff can be included and given out to school children.
Yeah.
In this one, if they succeed, I have this feeling that there's a possibility that the religious groups, the opposition to this, will say, fine, if we can't have our symbols, then neither can you. So anyone wearing like the big red A shirt, like, I'm an atheist, that won't be able to declare themselves.
Yeah.
And then what are you doing? You're creating a provincial dress code?
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean by overreach.
Yeah.
There's a friend of mine that I have in the skeptic community had this disagreement, and it got pretty heated, not hateful, but heated. And essentially what it boils down to is that we both agree with each other's points, but it's this difficult situation. Right? Human rights is supposed to be the protection of the individual within society, we believe in this value. So the hijab is a repression of another person's value. However, once you get into trying to restrict it, because that's what we would like to do, we would like to somehow just say you can't do it anymore and it would go away. But once you get into society and you start restricting it, you're right, it then has these broader ramifications about what the government can and cannot tell people to do.
Yeah.
Based on the government's sensibilities. So I think, there are still things we can do to try and edge people away from that way of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't force them, but you give them incentives or a few restrictions on some level, make things a little bit more difficult. Maybe they'll be more likely to go, you know what, this is the way it was in the home country where we came from. Now we're second, third generation. Let's just get rid of it and find a new way to carry out our belief.
Well, I mean, I think that happens naturally anyway. Like, I mean, there was a story, I can't remember if it was in Guelph or Kingston. It was in Ontario where this father and brother did an honor killing against their daughter because she was dressing...
They killed, I think, 2 female members of their family?
Yeah. And I mean, I believe it is natural for the most youth of second generation immigrants to kind of gravitate away from the traditions of their homeland.
Yeah.
The real problem is that we have to make sure that if they're going to do that, they can do it in an environment that is safe. So that they can't be tracked down by family relatives who are still fundamentalists from their home nation and just kill them because they're dishonoring their traditions. I'm sorry if they seem to be dishonoring their traditions, but this is their new home country. They can act as people act here if they choose to.
For my family background is Mennonite. They have the head coverings and they separate women from men. They don't have a tradition of killing women who don't do what they're told, but they do have a tradition of shunning. And they're within the old colony, closed off communities that are like horse and buggy. There's a lot of abuse that goes on sometimes towards wives, right?
But see, shunning is preferable to murder.
Well, it's preferable. It's still not good, but it's preferable.
Yeah, but if you're going to move away from that lifestyle anyway, then really, how bad is it? Like, I mean, I understand that emotionally it's traumatic for an individual to be shunned by their relatives and family members and those of their community that they grew to love and trust. But I think there's a responsibility to people who realize they're going to make a shift in their way of interacting with society. If you're going to go against the grain, you're going to get people who are going to shun you.
And, it takes time for that type of thing, support and people who understand what you're going through. It takes time because there's always the first few people who do it, and they kind of have to forge it on their own from their communities.
Mm-hmm.
But what I was going to say about Mennonites was simply that the major incentive that draws people away from the old colony is that they can get more money at a regular job. Once they're at a regular job, everyone's using regular technology. Nowadays, if you cell phones, at 20, 30 years ago, it would have been just even cars, brand new cars.
Yeah.
That creates a positive incentive for them to really challenge those old ways of viewing things. Well, the headscarf might not be directly connected to this, but my friends who are now regular people out in regular society are going to come over and see my wife puttering around the house in her headscarf with no education. So it creates incentive.
I mean, as far as this whole dress code thing is, like, just to wrap that part of it up, this is the way I look at it. In certain public areas, if you're out in public, if you're in a public park, or if you're in, in and around City Hall or a public school, and you're picking up your kid, if you're dressed the way your traditions say you should dress and you are fine with that, or even if you've just been raised to be fine with that, whatever. I don't think it should be an issue. Where I think it becomes an issue is in, like, certain jobs. Like, personally, I don't want to walk into a bank where they have security cameras everywhere, track my every movement, and then go up to a teller who has her face covered.
Right. That's definitely a restriction I agree with. A practical one about security.
Yeah.
If you want to, for instance, get your license taken, your picture taken, you need to uncover your face.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is.
Health cards, any form of identification. If you're going to be carded at the liquor store, not that I think many people who are wearing the face coverings would be buying liquor, but you know what I mean. Like, it'd be funny if they were.
But... All that says I must cover my face. Now, can I get a 40 and maybe maybe some Smirnoff?
It's a bit offensive, whatever. So, I don't know. Like, for my school though, initially I wanted to propose to the school board here that I be allowed to come in and teach a critical thinking course, like a critical thinking class.
Nice.
And I put the idea forward the first year this Bible club was in. I put it forward to the principal of my kid's public school, and she basically flat out told me that it would be rejected because I'm not an organization. I'm just
because being an organization gives you any necessary expertise, right?
Yeah, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. You're saying that if I can't pay the rent for the room and I do it after school hours, I can't teach kids how to... You're telling me I can't teach kids how to think critically? Are you serious?
Right.
And she goes, well, we don't want any debates between religion and non-religion in school.
Well, who started the debate? Who brought the religious organization
into the school? Exactly. And it was just basically like the idea was shot down before it had even taken form. It was just kind of a passing comment. If life hadn't gotten in the way, I was literally drawing up a proposal for the district school board where I'm from to present it to them, and then other things got in the way and it kind of got put aside, but I'm seriously considering doing it again.
Well, it's a great idea. I mean,
yeah, but what happened?
Even where there isn't a religious organization, it'd be great if kids had the option, parents had options of a critical reasoning course for their kids.
Well, I know. Like, I mean, literally what we are told now is to just regurgitate facts. And I'm not saying education is a bad thing. Education is an amazing thing, and I think more people should strive to be more educated. But the educational system sometimes kind of lacks in certain areas, and creative thinking and critical thinking are those two areas where I think they lack. But whatever, anyways, moving on.
Obviously, we have a rapist in Lincoln Park. He's climbing in your windows. He's snatching your people up, trying to rape them. So y'all need to hide your kids, hide your wife, and hide your husband because they raping everybody out here.
What's this about the Dawkins mild child molesting?
Yeah, let's see. I started following this early morning, the day when everyone started realizing what was going on. So Richard Dawkins is promoting a book right now.
Okay.
It's his memoirs, so as opposed to being about a specific topic or going after religion. It's his life.
Okay.
And in an interview, was it with, not the New York Times, it was with a major publication anyways, he was doing an interview. They started talking about his past, and during the conversation, he was talking about the fact that, times were different when he was young. He's 72 now, I think. When he was a kid.
Is he that old?
Yeah. He just looks really good for his age.
No doubt.
Unlike his friend Hitchens, he doesn't drink and smoke all the time, so maybe it's been a little easier on him.
I'm sure he still looks better than Hitchens.
And Hitchens also was always in the field. He was a journalist, right?
Yeah.
So he's talking about his past, and he's trying to tell the guy, well, listen, I have a hard time judging people the same way from when I was a kid, because all those decades ago, times were different. People did not jump on and realize the seriousness and go after child molesters as much. And he used as an example out of his own life, his own reflection based on the fact that he had a schoolmaster that, I don't know, I think he said reached into his shorts a couple times.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Boy, there are just some things you can't unread, right?
The way that people took this was that because he used the term within the conversation, mild pedophilia, he was using it as in terms of a grade of severity. So it's obviously not, he should have used a different term. He's talking to the general public, right? I don't know if this is an appropriate term for any specific educational field, but at any rate, that's what people latched onto. As opposed to the fact that he was trying to compare it to children who are brutally beaten and raped. He was just trying to say that his personal experience, he feels he did not have a lifelong trauma that held him back because of his. So yeah, that's the way I took it. People have been smearing him nonstop because of this, saying that he's justifying pedophilia and downplaying people's victimization. You didn't hear anything about that?
No, honestly, I didn't. I've been back in college now for a couple weeks, and I am completely inundated by the workload. It's not too much. It's just a change in my daily routine, so I haven't had a lot of time to do external reading. Some stuff just falls in my lap, like anything you send me in a text message or we read before we start recording. But most of it has been severely limited to school topics.
I think most people that read the story and really get into it, most people that I know that are not Dawkins haters, religious people who hate him or just people looking for a juicy story, they would say this: Dawkins puts his foot in his mouth a lot when it comes to social issues. He used terms that were inappropriate. However, he's not trying to okay pedophilia. So everyone needs to just calm the fuck down.
Yeah, I wouldn't even have taken it that way, because I mean, there's a gradient to almost everything. Like, I mean, like even in our court systems or in court systems around the world, like, I mean, you can have degrees of murder, degrees of assault, degrees of abuse. Sure, maybe his language wasn't politically correct.
Yeah.
But, I mean...
He could have chosen his words better.
He could have chosen his words better. But I got what he meant just by you telling me.
Yeah.
You know, mild pedophilia versus full-on pedophilia.
Yeah. Well, I listened to his Twitter that whole morning. Because I bravely went to Twitter to see if he was talking about it. And he was having arguments about Catholics, about the priests that are molesting kids, and fighting with Muslims that morning about the fact that in the Quran, Muhammad had that little kid that he married.
Aisha, I believe it's Aisha. She was like 6 or 7, and they consummated at 8 or 9.
Right, and he was clearly stating outright, he goes, I am not justifying child abuse. It is always wrong.
Yeah, you know? Under any circumstances.
Yeah. He's saying this outright, and yet, even after that, people are repeating this article on their news services online.
Anything to discredit the man's words. Yeah. That's what it comes down to. They're just trying to discredit him. They're trying to marginalize his voice. I mean, they might just succeed to some degree amongst their own circles, but really anyone, I think, who comes at it rationally is going to kind of see it for what it is.
I think the big thing that people miss on it is that he's reflecting on his own experience. This is why I would be less likely to judge harshly based on his terminology. I would give him the benefit of making the mistake. You know, because if, for instance, if a woman came forward and said, I've seen this example online, and I think it's sound. If a woman came forward and said, look, I was sexually assaulted and abused as a child, and I feel it was horrendous, would it be any more appropriate to look at her and go, well, look, I don't agree with the exact terms you're using, and I'm going to, as a professional, this is the thing that got me, as a professional counselor representing an organization of people who've been abused as children, I'm going to make a statement in public about what I think about how you feel about what your experience as being abused as a child. What kind of a professional does that? And they had numerous professionals coming out and saying this in England, the U.S. It's a personal experience. It's in the public. Shut the fuck up. Not everyone, but these professionals should know better.
Yeah, they should. Yeah, that's just a weird story. That one's hard to digest, just because, I mean, just by glancing at the screen here and reading, you know, the basic overview of the story, it seems like it was a rather benign comment, or intended to be anyway.
Yeah.
And it was completely skewed. Like, it was taken completely out of context.
Yeah.
So, are you done with that one?
Yeah.
Let us praise God. Oh, Lord. Oh, you are so big. Ooh, you are so big. Gosh, we're all really impressed down here, I can tell you.
Yeah. All right, so what's this Sunday assembly thing? It's because I'm reading it here, and it looks like churches for atheists.
Yeah, some people have problems with some of the terms and concepts that are going on, but essentially, the idea is that religion has taken the place of normal community stuff from a long time ago, right? So we now basically see churches, or the equivalent, as our community gatherings. So this is to remove the religion and still have, once a week, have a community where people get together. They seem to be having success. They're expanding already. That's the news right now. They're going to be expanding.
Yeah, what was it said? You can find them gathered in atheist churches. These services make sense because it seems doing religion rather than being religious is what really makes for a happier life. In a recent study at the University of Saskatchewan, found simply attending church, not holding religious beliefs, to be linked to a lower risk of depression. I'm going to tell you flat out, I don't have any problem with people coming together and, you know, having a community, but the term atheist church, it twists me up inside, man. It twists me up inside, because one of the almost constant arguments I have with theists is when they say your belief is a religion. And then I have to argue tooth and nail until I'm red in the face. It is not a religion. It's the lack thereof.
Yeah.
So then when an organization or, again, some outside body labels a group or assembly of people as a church, what are you doing? You're giving fire to the enemy.
This is exactly connected to the last story we did, in this sense.
Uh-huh.
Is that I would say, if I were talking to Dawkins, I'd say, look, you need to clarify your terms, because the terms are confusing people and they're very upsetting.
Yeah.
That would be the only thing. Right now, the term that they tend to use is Sunday assembly. But when the church word comes into play, I'm not disagreeing with what they're doing, but I would say you're confusing people and you're adding fire. You're adding fuel to the fire. But, Lee Moore, I follow quite a bit of the stuff he does. He's a podcaster for A News, and he's heavily involved in the New York branch. And it sounds great. It sounds like they just go there. I think there's even drinking. I think they have a bar. So it's very different than what some people might think it is. And if that's what people need, if that's what these people need in order to feel good during the rest of the week, as long as it doesn't start crouching with any ideological fortitudes, people have to conform in some way, I'm cool with it.
But I mean, I think that the people who are the leaders of these organizations or this collective that is coming together to form a larger organization have to be really careful about putting down any notion that this is a church, because the religious individuals who argue with atheists on a regular basis are going to be like, oh, look, you now have churches, you are a religion. And that's why defining your terms and defining what you are and what you are not is really, really important to do early on. Because, I don't know, I just see it going raw. It's like I've literally had arguments with other atheists who say we should, as a block of people, have tax exemption. No.
That's right. That makes us something as opposed to not something else.
Yeah, exactly. Just because they have it doesn't mean we should try and get it. What I would rather is the reverse of that. We should take this undue respect that governments give religion by giving them tax exemption and take it away.
That would be it makes no sense. It'd be the equivalent of saying, look, I know large corporations get these tax exemptions. Therefore, I'm not a corporation. I should also get corporation tax exemptions.
Yeah,
it makes no sense. Even if everyone on your street got together and said, we are collectively not an organization, or we are collectively not a corporation, we should get the...
We are community group A. We want tax exemption for our 3 blocks of the city, blah, blah, blah. No, it literally has been a heated debate that I've had with other non-believers that they think that we should form some sort of organization that applies for religious tax exemption. And I'm like, as soon as you do that, let's just say, for sake of argument, you succeed. Then every time you argue against a Christian, a Muslim, a Hindu, anybody who has any sort of spiritual belief, and they say, you're a religion just like us.
Yeah.
They are, by definition of your tax exemption and the way you are defined by outside bodies, you're a church of atheists, you're this, you're that. They're right.
Yeah.
They're right if they do that, or at least in my opinion they are. I'm sure it's a debatable point. I mean, sure, would it be great if atheism as a movement had tax exemption? Sure, we'd have more money to put our message out.
That would be another clause, I'd say, besides ideological control, as long as they also stay free of having that same recognition as a church. And I don't know if they're doing that or not, but you're right. That, again, creates a whole new gray zone. And to me, it's amazing, isn't it, how money allows people to suddenly slide away from their ideals? We are not like organized religion. Oh, tax exemption, you say? Oh, well, we're a little bit like them.
Yeah. Just a tad. Here's our book, and then we're going to have nice young atheist boys and girls walking the streets handing out pamphlets.
There you go.
Knocking on your door. Have you heard the good news? There's nothing after this. I don't know. I just think it conflates the issue and makes it far more confusing for people, especially people who are thinking about moving away from religion, and then they look at the body of atheism coming together in almost a church-like or religious community fashion, and then they're like, I'm just leaving this. I don't know if I want to be a part of that.
The Freedom from Religion Foundation, quite recently, has been going after the government about the way, what do you call it, in the States, the IRS has been very lax with the way they've been treating churches as opposed to other nonprofit organizations. So because they didn't want to go after churches about their status, they wanted to offer everyone that was in the Freedom from Religion Foundation the status of being basically clergy. And the Freedom from Religion Foundation was like, hell no.
No, thank you. I don't want your stigma, thanks.
To me, that's like a bribe. It's a legal bribe, but good for them for standing up.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, it's a great thing. It's a great thing that this community of people are coming together and trying to make their lives happier by giving themselves a solid community backing. But we don't need to have any labels to have that.
I agree.
That's why, like, again, going back to what we talked about in our last episode, the whole atheism plus fragmentation within the movement. It was a fragmented movement to begin with.
Yeah.
And because we're all kind of people who analyze each statement made by those that we consider to be respected voices, if you try to make us fit into a particular mold, we're going to eventually reject some aspect of that mold and then move away from it.
Yeah.
You know, it has to be something that is constantly willing to adapt to new evidence, to new situations. And that's why it's always going to be really hard for outsiders to define us. That's why it's hard for us to define us. Even you and I have had discussions where we do not agree on everything.
Yeah.
You know, as far as...
I disagree with you about that.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I've been kind of out of it for the last couple weeks.
Well, I mean, right now, like I said, I was back in school.
Yeah.
And right now I'm taking a lot of sociology, psychology, health issues in Canada. It's a foundations course. It's supposed to be kind of like the groundwork for me to get into a 2-year career course and then either move on to university or just go right out into the workforce. And like I was saying earlier, almost every course that I'm in right now has some aspect of research, methodology, or critical thinking.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of surprised that at a college level course this even needs to be touched on. Like, I understand for like talking about empiricism and critical thinking in research methods, that makes sense. Do we really have to wait until we're in the latter years of high school or the early years of college to really start covering this subject?
Yeah, certain things are not receiving as much emphasis, but I think it makes people uncomfortable. My example I would use about the way education is, the experience I had, I went to university. First year and a half, 2 years, I was not depressed. I was able to coast through all of my classes with a B+ average with literally no studying at all. And the way I did this was two things. One was that I learned how to do a proper essay format. So I would write an essay, I would do the research and everything the way they wanted. And regardless of if they liked my argument or not, they liked the way I presented it and argued it.
Yeah.
And I get excellent marks. The other one was that I learned not to take too many notes in class. I would use 3 or 4 notes sometimes for an entire hour and a half class.
Well, yeah, because if you spend all your time with your nose buried in your book trying to jot down notes, you're not paying attention to the lecture being given.
And also, when you go back later and you want to look over those notes for what was most important, you have a whole bunch of things. Really, it's about listening to your teacher and getting to know what they're trying to emphasize. And a lot of times they will stop and they will go, this is a major thing. Remember this thing.
Yeah.
And it just gets thrown into another 20 comments in your page.
Yeah, it's just blended in unless you know to highlight it as you're jotting it down.
All that kind of stuff plays into what you're talking about. These are some of the structural skills that can move the rest of whatever you're taking and whatever you're learning, can move it along. Critical reasoning in particular, I think, affronts a lot of people's sensibilities because it is about asking questions.
Yeah, well, I mean, right now there's a course that I'm taking. I unfortunately didn't get to go out to the school before it started. So there was a writ assessment test that I could have taken that would have got me exempt from that. Because I already know the essay format. Unfortunately, I just didn't have any time in the summer. You know, my schedule was absolutely insane.
Yeah.
So I'm now stuck taking a course that I find to be useful, but ultimately it's kind of repetitious for me because I've already done it. But at the end, I was like, you know what? You want to pad my grade point average? Awesome, sure, let's do this. So I'm learning things. I'm learning things that I'd forgotten, but it's still amazing. Like the young ones, especially when talking to them, you can see that youthful lack of critical thinking skill. It's just like they were never really taught how to take a claim and analyze it for what it is.
Right. This is in one of his songs, the interview I had with Tombstone the Dead Man.
Oh God, I missed that. I really wanted to get over here to be a part of that, so I hope you get to interview him again because I listened to that and that was awesome.
Yeah, well, I might when his next album comes out. If he has time, I might be able to talk to him about it. But at any rate, one of his songs talks in there about this is where the danger is. It creates a pattern. When you teach your kids growing up that they never should question God and should never question the beliefs that they have.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very important to never doubt them. This creates a subset in your mind of program prerogatives or whatever. This is the course you're gonna look at a lot of things in life this way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that everyone who's religious ends up being the same way. Everyone's a little different, but it carries that weight. Okay, so you go to class, teacher tells you something. Oh, well, that's interesting. But actually, when you question it in your mind and when you talk to the teacher and ask them questions, that's what's going to give you a better understanding of the material. That's what's going to also allow you to analyze the material for the projects you're making. Yeah. Questioning, doubting, these are very important skills.
They're very important skills, and also being able to like take any sort of claim and whether question it all you want. But let's say the claim is factual, like we know this to be true because we have information that backs it up.
Yeah,
there's nothing wrong with questioning even that which is established known.
Yeah,
established. That's probably not even a word, but whatever.
Sounds like a good word.
It sounds like a good word. I'm just going to make up words now. But yeah, you can analyze any claim, even ones that we know are factually accurate, and just learn the method of discerning whether or not a claim that has been made is true. King Crocoduck on his YouTube channel. I know that you said you haven't listened to any of his stuff, but he's got this YouTube series called Fucking Fundamentalist Fuckers. It's a little heavy on the F-bombs. Great video series, like absolutely brilliant guy. He actually interviewed Ray Comfort, our favorite banana man. It's just,
also known as Dickwad.
Yeah. Seriously, like the interview was so well done. I was sitting there listening to it, going, "Wow, he's dancing circles around this Ray Comfort guy, and he's just staring blankly back at the camera, and he doesn't know that he's being completely slammed. You know, he thinks he's winning." Yeah. And I think that's how he approaches almost every discussion he ever has with anyone who's secular, is that he thinks he's got the upper hand and he totally doesn't.
The image I have for people when they're talking like that is, have you ever watched the cartoon Looney Tunes when Bugs Bunny tricks Elmer Fudd going over a cliff? Elmer Fudd doesn't fall, he just stands in the air.
Mm-hmm.
And then Bugs Bunny says to him, "Aren't you afraid of gravity?" He goes, "Oh, I haven't read anything about that. I don't know what it is." And he walks away. So later on, Bugs Bunny leaves a book on gravity, and he's reading the book, and he walks up, and then he looks down, and he falls down the cliff.
If ignorance only worked that way, wouldn't that be awesome? You just don't know something, and so therefore it doesn't affect you.
That's right.
The fun thing, though, about my classes is that I am learning a lot of the basic fundamentals of psychology and sociology. It's weird, though, just by being a member of the secular community and being in as many discussions with believers and non-believers alike, I was surprised to find that a lot of the critical thinking skills that I possess, that this course wants you to learn, I already have.
Yeah.
A lot of the people that they discuss about the psychological and sociological effects of this or that religion and organizations and community and groups, I already understood the basic framework.
Yeah.
So none of the course material seems to be daunting to me.
Right.
Because I already understood it.
That's exactly why people were mesmerized by the fact that I could get B+. And I would beat people on the test. I had one friend in particular who was sitting next to me in theater history. He's a bright guy, and he's got like 30 notes on his page, point form. And I had like 2 or 3. And I was doodling a picture.
It's got to rub him raw.
Oh, yeah. And he looks over, and he's like, what the fuck are you doing? You're going to fail this class. And I was like, no, I won't. I got all my notes. He disagreed with me. I told him, look, you're taking too many notes. You're working too hard at it. You just need to listen. And I said, well, I'm drawing here. I'm still listening. It's kind of my thing. So he was worried about me. At the end of the semester's coming up, he's like, look, you got to come to my place and study. There was a bunch of us there, and I was like, okay, I'll make it if I can. So then I didn't have time. He took the test. I haven't studied at all. He walks up to me with a smile on his face, and he's like, what'd you get? I don't know, it was like 86% or something. It was a high mark. And he goes, you asshole!
Oh, yeah.
I see him like 2%.
I don't know how well I'm going to do. I'm fairly confident that I'll do well, but I mean the one class I have is basically a course about working well in groups, because a lot of our other courses have group assignments, and how to be a successful student. Ultimately, I mean, at my age, the way to be a successful student, at least in my mind, is to show up to class and listen. Having a whole course specifically just for how to be a successful student, okay, again, you know, I'll show up and do the work, you know. Yeah. But the teacher in that course is so nice. All my teachers are nice. I don't think I've met a single one of my teachers that I don't like, and maybe it's the field. You know, because I remember in public school and high school having teachers that I literally did not like.
Yeah.
You know, they just didn't jive well with me, or they just didn't have a teaching method that worked with me. But maybe it's the general field of helping people. Psychology, sociology, social service workers, they just tend to be the kind of people that gravitate towards that, are ones that work well with people.
Or maybe it's also the fact that they get to relate with you now as two adults. You're there as a student, they're there as the teacher, but now you're on par.
Maybe. There's a lot of young kids in that class, though, and I mean, fresh out of high school, young. So I mean, I'm kind of blended in amongst a sea of younger kids, 20 and down.
Even when I went to university, though, I was 22 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Even then, it was a very different relationship.
Yeah. Well, I think they expect that if you're going to be in this kind of higher education setting, that you're going to be of a particular maturity level.
Yeah.
Maybe not when you're not in class.
You're there because you want to be there.
Yeah, and because you can afford to be there.
Yeah.
The only thing I have to really watch out for, because I tend to be a bit of a class clown. I always have been. I don't know why, I just can't help myself. We had this exercise where we had to write our name down lengthwise on a page, and then write 3 adjectives beside each letter of our name to describe ourselves, which is not fair, because that meant that I have a pretty long first name when written out in full form, so I had 33 adjectives. Try and find 33 things about yourself that describe you. It's not easy. And then this one girl, she had an N in her name. I won't use her name, but the 3 adjectives she used in N were nice, neat, and nutritious. Yeah, you already know where I'm going. I made an off-color comment. It just kind of slipped out, and I said, so, nutritious, does that mean that you are into nutrition? Or if I eat you, I'll get my daily allotment of vitamins and minerals. It was an innocent comment that I meant to be like a play on words, where I meant, like, literally I would cannibalize somebody. And she took it as more of a cunnilingus joke, like a sexual innuendo. No, you're laughing. It gets worse. My professor was right behind me. Like, literally. She's laughing so hard, I thought, shit, I'm either going to get kicked out of this course for, like, sexual harassment, or I'm going to get, like, kicked out of this class for the day. No, she just laughed it off, and then she kind of made a comment in front of the class, and I'm just sitting there going red-faced, going, God, why'd I open my mouth? But, yeah, no, I'm enjoying my course, and I hope that it increases my ability to reason and evaluate evidence. And the one thing that I was complaining about last episode, where I said that, you know, I would really like more access to peer-reviewed journals. For some of my research assignments for class, the ones I have to hand in, we have access to the Library Media Services website, which also has a link to peer-reviewed journal database.
Nice.
Yeah, so I can type in almost anything I want, and I can get the summary of the paper.
Nice.
Or I can read the long form.
Yeah, a lot of places I can get like a little bit of a summary, and then long form they want money.
I'm down to 3. I'm down to 3 choices for my first project, because I have to pick a reflective thought paper and then do peer-reviewed references. Here are my 3, and you can tell me what one you think I should go for.
Okay.
All right. First one is just critical thinking, because I know they've done research papers on critical thinking.
Yeah.
So I have to write why I like it and why I want to do a paper about it and how it applies to me, and then do references to peer-reviewed journals. The second one is evolutionary psychology, which I have a big interest in. One, because it links to evolution, and I love talking about evolution, so I would have a deep interest in that. And the third is something called synaptic plasticity.
Oh, nice. About
how the brain learns, essentially, and how it creates new connections and gets around damaged areas and adapts. Yeah. So those are my three choices, and I have until like the beginning of October to get this done and handed in.
They all sound awesome. I like all of them.
I know. I kind of wish that I could do all three, but I don't think I have the time is not there to do all three, so I really have to pick one soon.
Yeah, it's a tough choice, man. I like them all. Yeah. I know a while back when I was thinking about going back, I was also having the same trouble trying to figure out exactly which field I want to specialize in. You know what? It's whatever interests you the most. Learn as much as you can about each of those choices, where it'll take you or where you can take it. Evolutionary psychology, you know what's funny is I didn't even know what that was in particular until the detractors came out, like P.Z. Myers and Rebecca Watson, and started trashing it. And
well, they're not fans of that, are they?
Oh, no, they don't. Well, anyone who finds it inconvenient will not like it. No. And P.Z. Myers goes so far as to say that in his professional position, he actively discourages students from pursuing it, which to me seems unethical.
Okay, and I know I'm going to stir up some feathers for anyone who listens who's a P.Z. Myers fan.
Probably not. There's probably not many of them listening.
Yeah, probably not. Probably not many people listening in general right now because I'm putting it. Honestly, I have absolutely zero respect anymore for P.Z. Myers.
Yeah,
like as a professional, he's an acclaimed individual in the circles that he runs. I'm sure he's respected for his opinion, professional opinion on the matters in which he has expertise. But the way he approaches the atheist community and all the drama in and around him that he has caused or been a part of, he has the social skills of a 14-year-old girl who just got dumped on prom night. Like, seriously, I have no respect for how he approaches debate or discourse.
Yeah, it's almost like he has a social deficiency. He doesn't understand that what he's doing is inappropriate.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, I don't know how a man who can be so critical in his thinking when it comes to his job. Yeah. Unless he's not. Like, I don't personally know the man, but maybe he's not.
Maybe he's a shitty biologist.
Yeah, maybe. But a man who, by all accounts, seems to be good at his job and good at analyzing information can be so bad at making claims about other people and their sexual conduct or just conduct in general.
Yeah.
Oh, that reminds me. I forgot to say last week, and I really, really, really wanted to make sure that I said this. I have proof there is no God.
Oh, you have proof?
I have proof, 100%.
What's that?
Ben Affleck is Batman. That's like the worst decision ever, and I know that everybody in the
Christians everywhere are gonna hang their heads low.
Yeah, damn, we just got our asses kicked. No.
Great Comfort's gonna commit suicide in a closet.
Yeah. No, it was a bad choice. I think I know it has nothing to do with atheism in general or specific, but holy crap! I remember hearing about that and just cringing. Did nobody watch Daredevil? Like, oh my god.
The first joke I had apparently was the first joke many people had on spontaneously was immediately going, "Is Matt Damon going to be Robin?"
That would be hilarious.
Oh,
I mean, if you're going to turn it into a comedy series, then why not, right?
I wonder if it's not a publicity stunt. The only thing that makes me think they're serious is that he arranged for someone else to take over the movie he was directing, Ben Affleck.
Mm-hmm.
So that to me sounds serious. But otherwise, I would have been so shocked. I would have thought this must be a publicity stunt.
We can only hope. I don't want to give our fans anything to worry about. But if it was a publicity stunt and it was all just to draw attention to the new coming movie, and he's just going to direct it or direct Justice League, there is a God. I'm sorry. No, but yeah, Ben Affleck's terrible, terrible choice. But anyways, that's what we have for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed listening to Mr. Dragonbeard and myself yammer on. Next week, or no, it's 2 weeks from now.
Next week or the week after.
Yeah, next week or the week after.
We do this on our own schedule, people. If you don't like it, you get your money back.
They're paying for this? Wait, you're getting money?
It's free, so they get all their money back.
Oh, okay. I would really...
If you like it, pay double.
I would really like to do an interview with somebody, and I knew you were thinking of setting something up, so maybe giving our listeners a sample of how we actually interact with a third party instead of just tossing back and forth.
Yeah, there's a couple people that have an interest. I'm not sure about Mr. Darby in Australia. I did an interview with him on his show.
Yeah.
Dumb Down Atheist. And also Anton Hill. He's online a lot. He has his own webpage.
Mm-hmm.
Smart guy. I think I like him.
Yeah. I don't have any interview ideas, but I mean, from what I've understood, like I've had discussions with people online who were otherwise big names on YouTube.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's possible. I used to go on to Stickam, and I used to talk to Oh My God, It's Chris, and she's a nice girl.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah, not just nice looking. Like, she's a nice lady, and talented, too.
Yeah, that is one nice thing about being part of a smaller subsect, like skepticism or atheism.
Yeah.
Is that the people who are well known, you still often will get a chance to have a talk with them.
Yeah, even if it's short.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, part of the problem was that a lot of people were vying for her attention when she came on and started talking on this website years ago. But she kind of took it in stride. She just kind of talked to anyone who had time, and she gave each person a little bit of time to talk to her, and then she graciously left the scene because she realized that the discussion got completely off track when she arrived. So, but yeah, it would be nice to interview some of the bigger names and get their perspectives on stuff. But anyways, that's what we got for today.
Alrighty.
Oh, son of a gun. You thought I was going to say son of a bitch, didn't you?
Everyone out there, be safe and don't die.
Yes, please don't die. We need listeners.
Where is he? If he's so close, why doesn't he arrive?
He doesn't realize he's already a part of the never-ending story.